Good evening, everyone. My name is Adnan Shafi, and I'm going to be a host for Saudi Africa today. So here we have a very special guest, Sim Shagaya. If that's how you pronounce it, right? Shagaya. Anyways, yes. So today we're going to be talking about ethics in entrepreneurship and women in the entrepreneurial field. So we're going to get straight into the nitty-gritties. And the first question we'd be asking is, do you feel as if entrepreneurial organizations should be vision-driven, or should they be driven by searching out for sponsorship or maximizing on their profits?
If those are the choices, without question, vision driven. And I think the fundamental sort of the descriptive factor of an entrepreneur is somebody that sees opportunity when nobody else does. That ultimately is the trait that, no matter what happens, no matter I think how much computers take over the operations of companies, or steam engines take over, or tractors take over the sort of the muscle power of man, what we haven't seen replace is the ability of a person to see a better future, to dream of a better future, and then to gather the resources to execute on that better future. So vision is what I would invest in if I had $1 to invest over anything else.
Interesting. So in that case, you don't necessarily mean that businesses should be driven by the maximization of their profit, and that if that would be the case,
yes,
where you do have to maximize profit because you have to run your business, how does that cut into ethics to the point where we have a choice between, let's say, safety and maximization of profit? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think that's a really, really important question. Without sounding holier than thou, I personally am not driven by profit maximization. There are other things other factors at stake. Look, we've seen where profit maximization has taken the world. All of these market failures, as it pertains to the environment, as it pertains to gender equality, all of these things are driven by a very short-term profit maximization sort of view of the world. I think there is something to be said for an individual. Look, whether it's now or later, you must have a social view of things. This is the reason why we see people who have built up tremendous amount of work, and you can't take away the fact that they work very hard, but at the tail end of their careers, what they do, they spend the last years giving the money away. And that is only just a manifestation of the fact that it's just a temporal thing. Do you give it away later, or do you think about society now? It can't just be about profit maximization, especially as it pertains to Africa. I think as it pertains to the world, but we've seen what's happened in the rest of the world when you think only about profit. The environment suffers. Market failures happen, externalities are created. Because I don't see it, nobody sees me dumping toxic waste into a river, I can do it. And there's a real cost attached to that. I think there are other things at play here, especially as it pertains to this continent. How do you educate people? How do you, healthcare? How do you take care of the needy? How do you improve the human condition? I think we've seen the late 20th century and the early 21st century has shown us the limits. It's taken us to the limits of profit maximization, and it doesn't look very good, my opinion, personally.
Yeah, just moving into one of the few last questions that we have. Yeah. In that case, you've mentioned a lot about giving money away. Yeah. Do you think that as an entrepreneur who's helping a community, do you feel obligated to be also like a philanthropist? Do you feel that should be the norm for entrepreneurs? If your job is to help the community, that if you end up amassing a lot of wealth, then a lot of that should go to charity?
For me, it's not even so much a philosophical debate as much as it is experience. I find that when I feel best, just myself, when my neurotransmitters are firing and when I sleep better at night, is when I'm doing something philanthropic. That's just me. So it's not even so much a philosophical debate, it's just my experience. That pleasure, the pleasure I get from that is many times greater than acquiring a new toy, a new thing, looking at an income statement and saying that income grew 75% year on year. It's about helping society, I think, for me.
Okay. And one of the themes that did come up in the Anzisha finalist gala was the role of women in entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So what do you think is their role in entrepreneurship, and how can we empower women in the entrepreneurial field?
Yes. Now, I think this is one area, Adnan, that we need to be a bit careful. I'll tell you what I mean by that. We can't limit our definition of entrepreneurship to this sort of urban view of entrepreneurship. Everywhere on this continent, this world, every day, commerce is happening in rural areas. Commerce is happening everywhere. People are creating value. People are trading. People are buying. If you look at it in its broader sense and include commerce that's happening in the rural parts of Africa, really the real entrepreneurial energy of this continent is women. If you really look at it, the trading is women. The baseline of economic activity that just keeps things chugging along is women. And they do this in spite of being deprived of capital and status and time and some of the privileges that women have historically enjoyed or we continue to enjoy. They still make it happen. And I'm not sure, how, but at least we're reaching sort of an era of awakening. I think we're seeing, at least in Nigeria, in the business world, women enjoy a relatively better position of sort of economic freedom. Politically, I know this is not the question you're asking, but I was very happy to hear that the Ethiopian government and the Rwandan government have made it a matter of policy to have 50% of the cabinet of the government be women. That's very powerful. On the government level, it really is a shame for my own country, where I think out of 40-something odd cabinet members, only 3 are women. So we have a way to go there. Yeah, we have a way to go.
Yeah, I guess that leads me on to something else, just on a bit of a tangent. Do you believe that we should implement quotas within businesses for women, or gender-based quotas?
Let me put it like this. I think, yes, short answer, yes. I do think that if I were a consumer goods company in Africa, for example, I think it would be silly of me to not have women on the governance level and the executive level. It just doesn't make any sense. I do think that, and I think quotas have a way of fixing structural deficits over time. So you force the change, and then over time you see that things are corrected. So it is a complex thing. The problem with quotas that made me hesitate, to be completely honest with you, is that quotas can introduce inefficiency many times. So, a man who means well, who is not misogynistic, who is actually a good guy, may get cut out of the system because of the quota. But I think the question you're asking me is net, is the quota good? In the context of the kind of deprivation of the kind of half of the society that we're seeing, I would say on balance, yes.
Okay, then away from more of the serious questions,
yes.
We have a bit of a riddle for you. Our riddle: I am the beginning of the end of every place. I am the beginning of eternity, the end of time and space. What am I?
I'm really bad with these things because I overthink everything. This is beginning.
It's actually simpler than you think.
It's an alphabet or a word, isn't it? Or something?
I don't know. Have a guess. It's actually the letter E.
I knew. Didn't I say it was an alphabet?
Yes, he did.
I knew it was something that's.
Yeah. Anyways, everyone, that wraps it up for South Africa today. It's been Adnan Shafi and Sim Shagaya,
yes.
Right? And this has been South Africa, talking about ethics in entrepreneurship and the role of women that they can play in entrepreneurship. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.